What's going on, everybody? You are looking at an 1887 Old Judge cigarette baseball card. And what I'm doing, I just picked this card up recently, and it sort of inspired me to finally do a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, which is sort of like the history of baseball cards, or my version of it. But before I even get into sort of this card, you kind of got to go back in time and figure out, well, when was the first baseball card? And there doesn't seem to be a real definitive answer. There's arguments about what is the first baseball card, but I'll give you three examples of what people think may be the first baseball card. So starting off with this card, which is from 1863. Now, keep in mind that baseball, in the 1860s is still sort of gaining popularity, and photography is still new. And they started to include trade cards as a way of promoting companies' business. This is the 1863 Harry Wright at Hoboken benefit. This was sort of to promote, or get patrons to come to the St. George's cricket grounds in Hoboken, New Jersey. The interesting thing about this card is that it was used to promote two cricket matches and a baseball game. And people that say that this is not the first baseball card, they sort of argue the fact that the grand match for this was a cricket game and not a baseball game, which is why some people say this is not the first baseball card. But then you have this card, which is an 1866 Unions of Lansingburg cards, which if you want to buy them on eBay today, just pay $179,000 and they're yours. But let me scroll down a little bit so you can see the actual cards. I guess the interesting thing about these particular players is they were known as the Unions of Lansingburg, and they were sort of notorious gamblers. They're sort of like the Black Sox. They would throw games just to win a bet. So these are also considered to be the first baseball cards. And then finally, if you actually go to Wikipedia, it'll say that the 1868 Peck Snyder cards were the first baseball cards because that they were really the first cards that were sort of mass produced. So it's sort of an argument as to what the first baseball cards is. I guess you can sort of make your opinion. Let me know what you guys think is the first baseball card. I probably would go with the 1863 because it's the oldest and it at least it involves baseball. But some of these almost feel like a photograph rather than a baseball card. But so you could even argue that the T206 are the first baseball cards, or even the 1952 Topps are the first baseball cards. But that's generally accepted. One of those three is the first baseball card. So anyway, so that sort of leads me to this card, the 1877 Old Judge cigarette cards. These were created by the Goodwin and Company. And Old Judge was, it's significant because it's the first major set of baseball cards. Whereas the other ones were sort of promotional. This was actually a set of baseball cards. And here's a close-up of the card. I think this is really cool. It's a guy named Sun Daly, and I guess they did this in a studio. And it looks like they're throwing him a baseball card, a baseball. And you can see here, you can barely read the print. I guess, I thought it was funny. I was thinking to myself, I mean, if you would have told this guy, 128 years from now, that somebody would buy a picture of him for, $100, he would probably think you were crazy. And I mean, it's almost like as if you were to sell this video 128 years from now for like $10 million. I can't imagine people back then thinking, that, something like this would be valuable. But that's another point I was going to make is that these if you're a fan of baseball or if you're a fan of the history of baseball, these cards are really cool, and they can be had for a pretty good value. Like I said, I spent like $100 on this card, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything crazy. But so that's the 1877 Old Judge baseball cards. Then comes probably one of the most significant sets, which is the T206 set. And I've been sort of wondering, like, so T206, it was created by the American Tobacco Company, which decided to introduce baseball advertising cards into their tobacco products with the issue of this T206 whitewater set. And I think I've been sort of wondering, well, what makes this particular set? Because a lot of people haven't heard of Old Judge and they haven't heard of the Peck and Snyder. This, for a lot of people, seems to be the most popular set. And I've been sort of wondering, well, what is it about this particular set that's so popular? So after doing my research, a couple of things. Number one, these cards were produced between 1909 and 1911 over a 3-year period. It features 524 different cards. It's got big name players like Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, Cy Young, Christy Mathewson, like big name Hall of Fame players. Another interesting thing is that there's 16 different backs, like Piedmont and Polar Bear. If you look at the back of these, this one's Piedmont, this one's Sweet Corporal. So those, you can see here, and because there's 524 different cards and there's 16 different backs, in order to get all of the cards for the T206 set would be virtually impossible. And I think that's what people love about it. There's so many different variations of these cards, and they're also really, really, like the white border, I think, kind of sets it apart. And then, of course, in addition to that, is the holy grail of baseball cards, the Honus Wagner. And I don't think I even need to show you guys this. I'm sure if you're a baseball card fan, you're fully aware of the T206 Honus Wagner. Supposedly, there were only 50 to 200 cards that were ever distributed to the public. And the most commonly accepted theory in terms of why there were so few cards produced was that that Wagner objected to the production of the baseball card. Now, as to why he objected is sort of up for argument. Some people think that he was against including it as part of a promotional tool for kids. Like, he didn't want kids to be buying tobacco products. Another argument is that there was no contract between Honus Wagner and the American Tobacco Company. And therefore, American Tobacco Company pulled the cards after complaints from Honus Wagner. So this card is, and this one specifically is the Honus Wagner McNall Gretzky card. So this is like the holy grail of holy grail cards. In 2007, one of these cards sold for $2.7 million. And I'm sure that if another one were to be sold today, it would sell for even more. And then this particular card would probably sell for even more than that. So that's sort of the T206 set. So after the end of World War I in 1918, baseball card production sort of lulled until the 1933 Gowdy set. So I'll pull that up. This is a 1935 Gowdy 4-in-1 set with Babe Ruth on it. I don't have any cards from the 33 Gowdy set. But the Gowdy cards sort of would distinguish them. Number one was that they were the first cards that included a stick of gum in the pack. The backs provided a brief biography and some personal information such as height, weight, and birthplace. This particular 1935 Gowdy, what they did is they cropped the pictures of the 33 set and put it into like a 4-in-1, which included players from the same team. One of the interesting things about this 35 set is that there's 36 cards, but there's, again, many different backs to it. So like this one in particular, the Babe Ruth card has 4 different types of backs on it. So from there, that brings us to the next, in my opinion, the next sort of significant set, which is the 1939 Play Ball set, which was manufactured by Gum Incorporated, which would later be called, they renamed the company to Bowman. So This 1939 play ball card is really the first Bowman related set. So that's what's sort of significant about the 1939 set. So from 39 and on, because of the war, again, there weren't too many cards that were distributed. In 1948, Bowman sort of reemerged, and they became sort of the main manufacturer from 1948 to 1952. They were sort of the big name company. So this is the 1950 Bowman. This is the 51 Bowman, Jerry Coleman. But then in 1951, a man named Cy Berger, a 28-year-old veteran of World War II, begins development of the 1952 top set, which is really, the biggest set pretty much ever made. So here are some examples of the 52 top set, and I absolutely love these cards. I'll just put a bunch down here. I could keep going. And here's the Tom Morgan. So, and I have a bunch of other ones just because I'm such a huge fan of the 52 top set. I think what drew people to it, number one, what I think is really cool is they did the signature on here is sort of a facsimile of the signature that was on the contract. Another big thing that they did with the 52 top set is they're the first ones to put statistics on the backs of the cards. And that was significant because up until then, baseball cards was always sort of meant, I think, a little bit more for adults. And what Topps did in 52 is that they made that a little bit more attractive to children. So they did the statistics, which attracted children, and they included gum in the packs, which attracted a wide variety of kids. And that's part of the reason why a lot of the cards from that time period are not in great condition, because kids had them. They would put them in their bicycle spokes and they'd throw them against the wall as a game. So they didn't really take care of the cards. So that's, the 52 tops. And of course, with the 52 tops set is also the Mickey Mantle 52 tops, which unfortunately I don't have the 52 tops Mickey Mantle, but I figured I'd pull it up. So here's the 52 tops Mickey Mantle, number 311. And what they would do is sometimes they would hold back a big player. And so they would come out with Series 1 and Series 2 and then Series 3. And the Series 3, they'd hold back certain players, to sort of bolster sales. But what would happen a lot of times is by the time Series 3 came out, there was less interest. And because of that, this was actually this was of the high-numbered series. This was the first card of that high-numbered series, number 311 of that set. And what unfortunately would happen was unsold pallets of the high-numbered sets were just dumped into the Hudson River with a forklift. And that happened a lot. They would either get rid of the high-numbered cards, or there would be less produced because the sales weren't as high. And that's why there are a lot of high-numbered cards that are not sold or not available in the market because of that particular reason. So that's the 52 top set. And so moving along, you have, and I'm just going to sort of take you through the years here. This is 53 Bowman. This is 53 tops. And let's see, this is a 54 tops, Luke Easter. And a 55 Bowman white. The 56 tops, this is an Al Rosen card. Then you have the 56 tops, Roy Campanella. 58 tops, Gil Hodges. I think what was sort of significant about 58 was that they changed the, if you look at the size of this card compared to previous versions, they actually changed the size of the cards. I believe in 57 they changed the size of the cards, which is sort of the standard for today in terms of like, that's why some of these older cards don't fit in the 9 pocket holders. Because in 57, I believe, they started putting them into these in the smaller versions of the card. Another thing that happened in 56 is that Topps became sort of the exclusive company out there. They bought out Bowman. So from 56 and for the next 2 decades, they really became the only real manufacturer of baseball cards. So they sort of had a monopoly for a very long time. And then this is the 59, Les Moss. 1960, Tito Francona. 1961, Robin Roberts. 1962, Minnie Minoso. 1964, Mickey Mantle. 1965, Tito Francona. Got a 1968, Johnny Bench. 1969, Willie Mays. In 69, there was also, Fleer tried to come out with like a Ted Williams version of a set, and then he retired a year or 2 later, so they were sort of in and out of the market real quick. But again, it sort of continued with Topps basically having monopoly on the on baseball cards. So 1970, Reggie Jackson. There's a 71, Hank Aaron. This is a 72, Carlton Fisk rookie. This is 1973, Mike Schmidt rookie. 74, Dave Winfield. 75, Topps. This is a George Brett rookie. 76 Topps, Dave Winfield. 77, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver. 78, Mike Schmidt. A 1979 Mike Schmidt. 1980, Ricky Henderson. So, like I said, guys, Topps basically has a monopoly. And then in 1981, actually in 1975, Fleer sued Topps and ends up winning the lawsuit in 1981. And what 1981 is, it allows Fleer and Dunrust to sort of come into the fold. But the only thing that the lawsuit said was that Topps had a monopoly on creating packs with bubblegum. So what Fleer did is that they started including cards with logo stickers, and Dunrust sort of creates like cards with Hall of Fame Diamond King. So here is the 81 Topps set. Here's the 81 Dunrust and the 81 Fleer. So this is the first Dunrust set and the first Fleer set. Then you have the 82 Topps and 83. Now, what happens is, and here is 84, all the Don Mattingly's from 84. One of the big things that happens in 1979 is James Beckett starts distributing a magazine. And one of the first things he does is, one of the first magazines that comes out, he has the Mike Schmidt rookie card in 1979, valued at 12 cents. And I really give James Beckett sort of credit for the boom of the baseball card industry. And I think you have to sort of understand what happens when they start distributing the Beckett Baseball Guide. And I just want to take you over to this. When they just start distributing the baseball Beckett Guide, it really becomes offers like a new way for people to look at baseball cards. And and this is from personal experience, the ability as a kid to see what the value of your cards are. And here is 1990 Beckett. So let's just to go over here. I'm going to pull up the 1986. And the cool thing about the Beckett back then is it had pictures, so you'd be able to find where the card was, what the value was. Here is, for example, and this is the 86 Donruss. And there you go, Jose Canseco, $125. And I think the amazing thing about this is you had, it was sort of like fantasy football or fantasy baseball today, where you can watch the value of a baseball card going up and down. And there wasn't as much, like, everyone sort of knew the importance of condition. And I think everyone sort of saw like how old baseball cards were treated, how there were so many cards that were in terrible condition. And I think the general consensus was like, if I have a card and I sort of take care of it, it's in mint condition. So like for me as a kid, every card that I had was in mint condition. And if it had like a really bad corner, maybe it's in near mint condition. And that sort of comes into play later when PSA and BVG, when companies start grading, because, as long as you sort of took care of your cards, they were I always just assumed they were in the mint condition column. But this, because of the Beckett baseball card guide, it sort of creates this boom where everyone wants to collect, and they could actually watch their player and watch their card go up and down in value. So going back, so this is the 84 set. This particular card, the Don Mattingly card, is significant. Back then, this became like the premier card to own. The 84 Donruss, Don Mattingly especially, at one point going for about $65 in 1990. So that's the 84. Then you have 86 Donruss, which again should have sold it back in 1990. It was $125. I'd be lucky if I got $10 for it now. But that's the 86 Donruss, which Canseco goes to $60 in 1993, and then in 1990, as you saw, is like $125. One of the big things, 86, I think, is the beginning of when cards begin to be sold in bulk. Just an example, and so this is 86. This is 86. Some big cards from back in the 86. Of course, you have the 87 Donruss, Bo Jackson, the 87 Topps, Mark McGwire, and I also missed the 85 Topps, Mark McGwire. But one of the things you saw, like, this is when the market just exploded. And, people were just buying, like, anywhere you went. You could go to a little shop and pick up as many, like, there was a time where there were more baseball card stores than coffee shops. And you'd be able to walk into a store and, buy a pack, like it could be at a gas station, and buy a pack of baseball cards. I would go in, this is just an example here. I would buy, like, look at all these, like, you'd buy a guy like Cal Daniels, and get him in bulk in hopes that he'd become the next Jose Canseco or the next Ken Griffey Jr. You know, and these cards were so crazily mass produced that it sort of created this boom where, and eventually, of course, the supply and demand sort of caught up to each other. But you know, this is '87. You had you know, a big card from back then is, of course, is this '89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. I guess the '89 Upper Deck sort of changed what went on. These cards sold for a whopping 99 cents, like a pack of cards for 99 cents. And you could see like the production quality of these cards was a lot greater. So I think, you know, with the Beckett and with Upper Deck and with all these cards coming out, it sort of created this unbelievable demand that wasn't able to hold up. You know, and I remember as a kid, you know, I pulled out some cards. You know, here are some cards that, like, you know, I thought were going to be worth, you know, and you think as a kid, like, you know, these cards are going to be worth so much money one day. So I just wanted to show you guys some examples, like Marquise Grissom, Greg Jeffries. Everyone sort of remembers the Bill Ripken card. Chris Sabo, Pete Incaviglia, Mike Greenwell, Todd Zeal, Chris Sabo, Greenwell, Kevin Seitzer, Kevin Moss. I thought, you know, as a Yankee fan, I thought this card was going to be huge. He had 1 year where he just went nuts. Kevin Mitchell, Seitzer, there's Kevin Moss again, Greg Vaughn, and then what about this guy, Brian Taylor, who was supposed to be the number one pick for the Yankees and become this great pitcher, you know, and everyone has copies of these cards. Steve Searcy. Everyone has copies of the, like, if you grew up in the, you know, in the late '80s, early '90s, everyone has so many of these cards, like tens. I might have 10,000 cards from the late '80s, early '90s. It's absolutely nuts. So that's just an example of what went down in the late '80s. Then you have, you know, here's some more cards. 90 Leaf. So then what happened is, you know, it wasn't enough to have just Topps Donruss, and you know, now you had Leaf available. This was a Donruss product. Then I guess what Topps tried to do is they tried to sort of emulate what Upper Deck was doing by coming up with Stadium Club. So they had sort of a premium set called Stadium Club. Bowman sort of got into the act by having, you know, this Bowman set where it was the supply wasn't as high, so that sort of led to higher values of cards. The 93 SP set, you had Topps also did sort of a premium brand, Finest, and Fleer did this called Flair. Here is the 94 SP. I think what happens, you know, and I really think that there's sort of the bust of the boom, I really think sort of takes place in 1994 because there's a strike, a baseball strike that causes, you know, interest to be lost, obviously, in baseball. Baseball sort of moves on from the strike, but I don't think baseball cards ever really fully recovered from it. Obviously, like I said, cards were being mass produced, and it got to a point where there was just way too much supply to meet the demand, and with the strike, everything just sort of collapsed. And it got to a point where the MLBPA had to step in 2006 and basically said that only Topps and Upper Deck can distribute cards. What some of the cards like Upper Deck, what they tried to do was to generate interest, was to come up with these cards like this, where there's like game used bats or jerseys. So it led to a lot of sort of innovation that occurred. But because of the supply and demand collapse, you know, the player strike, There was multi-tier printing, monthly sets, licensing fees. Pinnacle folded in 1998. Pacific folded in 2001. Fleer folded in 2005. And Dunruss folded in 2006. Internet basically kills the hobby shop. The McGuire card that, at one point in 2000 sort of regenerated interest for a little while, but then just like what happened with him, how he went from an immortal to immortal. His card went from, selling from $200 to $250 to selling for like $15 now. But like I said, it did lead to some innovation. Like what card companies did is they would, come out with, autographs, patches. So here's a Miguel Cabrera patch. You have, again, autographs. Here's one of the later top sets. One of the things that I have to say is that, I basically, after the strike, I don't even have, the funny thing is I have so many cards, but I have nothing from like 1995 to 2010. I virtually have no cards from that period. And, again, I think a lot of people were like me. I think they left the hobby because of the strike. And a lot of people like me went to college and found other things to be interested in. And I really think that there might be hope on the horizon I don't think it'll ever get back to the way it was, but I think there might be hope on the horizon because I think there's going to be a lot of people that were kids and are going to sort of rediscover the hobby. Again, one of the things that we're seeing now are these, the grading of cards, I think is luring some people back. This is a 2011 Topps, Mike Trout. What cards, what they're also doing here is doing these short print cards to generate interest. This is an example of a short print. Then you have the Mike Trout 2014, and then finally the 2015 Topps Derek Jeter. So like I said, people are rediscovering the hobby. I don't know if anyone's really noticing, but vintage sales are in the multi-millions of dollars over the last 10 years. So I do think that there's hope. I don't know if there's any hope for the modern cards, and there seems to be, with eBay, it's really easy to buy cards now, and there's a lot of trust now that wasn't there before. But it'll be interesting to see, where the hobby goes from here. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed my version of the history of baseball cards. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, and I appreciate all the feedback. So thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.